I had to stop and get some drinks.
Okay.
And ran into some traffic.
Oh Lord.
Ran into some traffic.
Let's hope we keep it cute today. We're not gonna get too well, you got a little smear on. That's not too bad.
I told you, man, we're keeping it light,
And I guess our man Carlton is on his way.
Yeah, today's drink is sponsored by Smirnoff.
Smirnoff Ice. But on a serious note, everybody, today we have a very special guest. We have with us author Donna Hayes. She recently published her first book. And, thank you. Yes, please applause. Cincinnati Doe. Donna, welcome to the show.
Thank you
Thank you,
guys.
honor.
Thank you for having me.
It is an honor to have you here. First, let me tell you guys. Oh, hey, Carlton.
Hey.
Carlton just popped in up on the scene. Welcome.
Hey, go figure.
We were just about to read Donna's bio, so I'll read her bio while you get situated, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So Donna Hayes, actually, she's a fellow Largo High School from the Pretty Girl County, PG County. We went to high school together.
Class of 89 in the house.
Okay. So Donna Hayes is the founder of the DMV Mothers Like Me, a local support group that connects suburban mothers of D.C., Maryland, and Virginia whose lives have been directly impacted by gun violence. She is the typical mother of two, an offspring of Southern grown parents, both born and raised, I'm sorry, I got my contacts on, as a product of an urban DMV community. She was educated through the Prince George's County Public School System, earning a bachelor's degree in business and finance at Bowie State. That's correct, right? Bowie State.
Right.
She's a Bowie Bulldog, y'all. Donna is a divorcee. She's a mother of two, and she has recently become the caregiver to one of her young adult sons. And today we are here to talk about your book, Cincinnati Doe.
Yes.
So Donna, my first question to you is, how did August 4th, 2018 forever change your life?
Well, first, let me just thank you all for having me on this platform today. Trina, again, fellow Largonian.
Yes, class of 1990.
I don't know where y'all went to school, but you know.
DMV's finest.
Oh.
McKinley Tech.
Oh. Okay.
One of DC's finest in more ways than one.
All right now. Okay. We'll talk about that after the show. But August 4th, yes, I received a phone call that no mother ever wants to receive. My son had been shot, and he was fighting for his life in ICU. He was actually shot in the head as a result of an attempted robbery. And after a number of surgeries, brain surgeries, seizures, months and months of rehabilitation, learning how to walk, talk, eat, swallow, write, all the things that we so often take for granted on a daily basis. He learned how to do all those things again. He miraculously survived.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's a blessing. And I followed this story, your journey, on Facebook. As you can see, I'm wearing today my Cam Strong
Yes,
shirt.
you are. Thank you.
The story basically broke my heart. I met your son, both of your sons, once at your birthday party at, our local OTI. And as a mother, it just broke my heart when I found out what happened. I literally cried at my desk. I was like, this is unbelievable, and from what I know on Facebook, your sons are miraculous and studious, and they were raised by you. You know what I mean? Like,
they are chip off the old block.
Okay, you know what I mean? It was like, why would somebody do this?
Yeah.
So how did you cope as a mother and a caregiver to Cam? Like, what changed in your life? What did you have to do? I mean, I'm pretty sure with the strength of God behind you, helped you, but I'm sure there were other things that had to, in your, mentally had to prepare you for this.
Well, like you said, number one, my spirituality. That was my number one coping mechanism. Relied a lot on my faith. I will be the first to admit that I questioned my faith a time or two
Oh, I'm sure.
during that process, but I also learned that, when you have nothing else, your faith is all you have to rely on, right? And so my faith was reinstated and reinforced after my son survived and, watching him survive. Secondly, we had a lengthy support system, family, friends, neighbors, co-workers, classmates, Largonians. Nobody from McKinley Tech came out, though. I will say that.
Were we notified?
But people showed up and showed out. I mean, showered us with prayer, love, money, gifts, food, more food.
Yeah, I read about your book where you said you guys basically took over the.
Oh my
what was
goodness!
the waiting room.
The
You had
waiting
your
room in the
corner.
ICU.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you said people bought you food
Yes.
like every day.
Yeah,
Even my
it was-
neighbor Larry Jones. Me and Larry live right on
Oh,
the same.
Larry! Shout out to Larry Jones. He actually made a homemade lasagna.
Yeah, he told
For me.
And
Yes,
I think
he did.
by the time I was ready to come, I think you had shut it all down at one point. You
Yeah,
were
we
like,
had
yeah,
to.
you had to. So, I reached out to you through, Facebook, like I said, supporting you, Cam Strong, keeping you in prayer.
But those were two things that we relied on, the things that helped me to cope. Also, I reached out to, or I found a couple of gun violence awareness support groups online. I found TBI, support groups, traumatic brain injury,
Okay.
support groups online that were instrumental in just helping me get through that time. I had no idea what to expect.
Right.
And reaching out to that community, they uplifted me in a way that was
Wow.
like no other. They could understand, although we had friends and family surround us and people, were there for us, folks
Right.
didn't really understand exactly what I was going through.
Right, and that's what I want to talk about. What are some of the things that you learned during this experience? Because, like you said, you're sure unless you've been through it,
Right.
you honestly don't know.
You don't know. I learned a lot about the brain.
Okay.
Number one, more than what I cared to know, how the brain operates, different parts of the brain, how it affects us physically, mentally, emotionally. Just watching my son recover from those things. I had to learn about the brain in order to support him
Okay.
through that process. I learned about the law enforcement system, and Carlton, I'm glad that's why you're here. I would like to ask you a couple of questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Some things that went on behind the scenes, things that didn't go on behind the scenes that I would like more answers to, actually. Maybe you can help me understand. I just learned a lot about the TBI community. I had no idea that even existed.
Wow.
And
Yes, it's the first time I've heard of that.
yeah, and to this day, now that I've grown so much in that particular community, I'm able to help others, new people who sustain brain injuries that come in, caregivers. Now I'm able to give them encouragement, give them advice and direction on how to find different resources. So those are some things that I learned in the
That's
process.
amazing. That is so amazing. I want to read something from your book. You picked the scripture, Deuteronomy 31:6. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Why did you pick that particular scripture?
A couple of reasons. Again, when my son was injured, I had no idea what to do, what to expect. And I had to lean a lot on my faith and in prayer. People around me, the medical staff gave me encouragement, confidence in order to become a caregiver, to strengthen who I was in that area. I had no idea where to even begin. And then during the process, and I don't want to tell too much about the book. I would like for your listeners to go out and actually get the book.
Definitely.
But one thing that emerged in this process was the Cam Strong campaign. And just that word strong took on just a whole new meaning. And watching him rehabilitate, recover through that process just gave me a whole new perspective in what it means to be strong.
Okay, wonderful. Amen. How has COVID-19 affected gun violence as well as your son's health and care?
Well, one thing that I would like to point out is that gun violence is a public health issue, right? It's a public health crisis. It's an epidemic. Now we are faced with COVID-19, which is yet another public health crisis,
epidemic.
right? You bring the two together, and it's a recipe for disaster somewhat.
Right.
You know, people have run out to purchase guns. Millions of people have gone out to purchase guns, you know, thinking that they want to protect their family, protect their homes, protect themselves. But what it potentially has done is it's heightened the risk of more homicides, more suicides, more domestic violence, things like that. So it is definitely a recipe for disaster. COVID-19 has spiked the number of gun violence cases. Just during the months of March through May, the gun violence deaths peaked tremendously. If you all remember, just during the month of July, 4th of July weekend, as a matter of fact, the number of children that were killed by gun violence, a lot in our area, as a matter of fact. So those two don't really mix well. But then from a medical perspective, I mentioned that my son has a history of seizures. Now he has what we call now underlying condition.
Right.
Has
So-
seizures prior or due to this situation?
No, he has seizures since the injury.
Yeah.
Yes, he had no history of
I've
seizures
seen-
prior to.
I've actually seen that before. Like I say, when you talk about gun violence, 28 years I was in law enforcement in D.C. and I responded to so many shootings and homicides of young people. And I
Yeah.
tell people it's something you never want to see. And I often talk to Tracy how numb I became to it after seeing it.
Yeah.
And I tell people it's sad. They say you don't have any, you're not content. No, I am, but after so many, you get so numb. And when I say I've seen it up close, I remember responding, and I remember my first 3 days on the street. I came across 3 dead bodies.
Wow.
One was an overdose, and 2 were victims of gun violence. And
Wow.
I looked around, and I was like, this first time now I've seen people dead before. This is the first time I've seen people shot. I mean, just shot all of them. I'm like, I look around, they say, yeah, this is what happens on a regular, and I'm just like,
Wow.
and as I stand there, you know, the other officers who've been there for a while, they kind of make jokes. And I'm looking at them like, for real? And they say, that's the only way you can really cope with all that you see is to try to lighten the mood somehow. But, and I'm thinking about your situation and how you say you never want to get that call or that notification. I remember having to make that notification, and it is one of the hardest things ever.
Yep.
You never want to do it. You never want to say it. There's no, you try to prepare a person, but there's really no way to prepare somebody to tell them, hey, your child, you know, and that, like I said, I did it a few times, and I never ever wanted to do it in my life, because that is one of the hardest things there is to do. And a minute ago, you were talking about the gun violence and how it spiked. And there are several reasons why I tell people that you had a major spike in gun violence. First of all, everything was shut down. Nobody was out.
Yep.
Then you got the job, people losing their jobs. So everybody trying to come up as quick as they can.
That's right.
Then there were no social gatherings, except for like on the 4th of July, or like on Memorial Day, or on a big holiday, and everybody will come out and congregate in one area. And at that point, people say, well, I'm going to take my opportunity because I haven't seen this person to do something.
Right.
And it's just terrible. Like they had a shooting a month or so ago in 6D. That's where I was a detective in the district, in the 6th district. I was a police officer in the 5th district forever over Montana, Montello. They called it Little Vietnam over there on 21st Street and all that. And when they said they found, I talked to officers, they still call me, we talk all the time, they said 100 and something shell cases on the ground. And like 15 or 16 people shot. One was an officer who was critically wounded too.
The young lady?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, this is just terrible. And like you say, it is an epidemic. And like I said, I've seen it firsthand on both sides. I had co-workers that have been victims of my co-worker, you know, Joe Noel, he was murdered right out there in Upper Marlboro. That hurt me to my heart. I mean, that just broke me down. Because the same day I was talking to him, he went home, had a disagreement with his stepson, and his stepson just gunned him down.
I remember that story. Yeah.
And that just broke me right there. That just broke me. Then I had another co-worker who was driving to work, and he was shot several times, you know, by a car. They were trying to carjack him or whatever. So I seen it on both sides as far as, like you say, go to the hospital, and just the outpour and support you get from people.
Yes.
It really helps you.
It does.
And you turn to it and you look and say, hey, this is all right. Because like you said, the officer who was in the hospital, his wife was a former police officer, and just to have everybody come up there and show support, and like you said, after a while it gets crazy because there's so much food. You would think you were at a family reunion. I mean, it was just like a family reunion in there. You go up there, there's always somebody bringing something in fresh.
That's
and I mean,
right.
it's just so much support. And I like to think that we as black people especially, we are a compassionate race.
We are.
We are all inclusive. We welcome everybody. And I like to think that's what helps us cope with a lot of what's going on.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've seen it up close, and it hurts me. I tell Tracy how I remember a guy, a little boy, no older than 10. I heard the gunshots. I was right down the street, drove up the street, saw him laying on the ground with a hole in his head. I walked over top of him, and he took his last breath looking at me, and I'm just looking at him. It's nothing. It's sad, but there's nothing you can do. You're there to help, but there's nothing you can do.
Right.
His mother comes down there. She's holding a little infant, and it's the summertime. It's one of them hot summers. It's like almost 100 degrees outside, and his mother runs over there, and I grab her in one arm, and the baby in the other arm, and she just collapsed right there. And I look at my son. He says, "Nothing you can do." And they say, "Just put her in the car, cut the air conditioner on, and try to keep her comfortable." But at the same time, I'm like her. I'm just looking at her baby on the ground. She got a toddler in her arms.
Right.
And I'm just thinking to myself, when does it stop?
Yeah.
Really, when does it actually stop?
That's
Because
right.
it's just sad.
That's right.
And that's what leads me into my next question. Like, how do I suggest, or how do we suggest that our communities become more active in making a difference in the gun violence epidemic? Like, what do we do? How do we protect our children? Just like I was talking to Donna prior to us getting on air, I'm a mother. I have four children total. My 19-year-old is at home with me now because of the pandemic, and I'm a maniac. Like, he walks out the door, I'm like, "Where are you going? What time are you gonna be back?
That's right.
Who are you with?" You know, and you know, he's looking at me
time.
like, "Well, Mom, I'm 19 now," and I'm like, "I get that, but there is so much going on out here in this world." And in my mind, a lot of these kids are haters. They hate on you for what you have, you know, what you're doing. You know, I know your son was probably out here doing something positive, you know what I mean, out with friends, or he could have been coming from work when all this happened, but doing something positive. You know what I'm saying? Our kids are not into crime. You know what I mean? They're not out here on the corner making a ruckus. They're in school. They have jobs. They were raised right. You know, but then you have children out here who have lost their way, and they want to come out here and take our children from us? No.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So I'm going to continue, and I wish, you know, I want to speak to the young mothers out there, you young mothers who are just becoming moms. You know, don't let social media pressure you into telling you how to raise your children.
Exactly.
Don't let all this mess on IG and Facebook and TikTok dictate how you raise your child. I raised my children how my mother raised me. Where are you going? Who are you with? What time are you going to be back? What time do I need to pick you up? Are you going to a party? Are their parents going to be home? I'm going to walk into the door. I'm walking in the party. Whose mom
want
is
to
here?
meet your
Who's
parents.
there?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. You know what I mean? I'm that mom. My kid, you know, my 19-year-old, he may not understand it now, but he'll understand it later. My other son, who just turned 24, he moved to Texas. He drove from Atlanta to Texas, and do you know, he put his locator on his phone. He said, because, Mom, I want you to be able to know exactly where I am, because he was by himself in this journey. He may not have understood that at 18, but at 25, he said, you know what, I'm going to let my mama know.
But you know
My
what, Trina?
journey.
When the kids get mad at us and roll their eyes and say, Mom, I'm grown, that's part of being grown. That's part of being an adult
Right.
and being responsible. You let
See, they
somebody
don't
know
understand
where
that.
you
That's what I
are.
say, that's a part of being responsible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, just like you were
Exactly.
saying, Donna, when we go out of town, we send somebody our itinerary, because you
That's
don't
right.
know what's going to happen. We don't
That's
know
right.
when we're going to leave this earth. If something was to happen at the airport or on our journey, somebody can say, hey, well, I know Katrina was on that flight,
Flight
or could have
so-and-so.
been on the BW Parkway, or somebody knows where you are. Just
That's
like
right.
today. Hey, Facebook, y'all know where I am. I'm up here.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Each and every Saturday.
And I agree with you. That's a prime example. Like I have a niece. She travels up to New York, you know, and goes to see her girlfriends that she was in college with. And you know what she does? She gives my brother an envelope with all her passwords,
That's
to
right.
everything, in the event something happens. And she trusts him enough to know, hey, he's not prying in it. The only time he's going to open it is when an emergency occurs. Other than that, hey. And I think that's something we need to talk to all our kids
That's
about.
right.
Hey, give somebody all your passwords, all your social media, everything, your laptops and all that. So if something happens to you, you will have a good place to start to try to backtrack and find what's
I literally, my son, he stopped by birth certificate. He's getting a passport. And I told him, I said, listen, you see this
Right.
advertised, this is where you find my will, this is
Right.
where you find all my account information, this is where my passwords are, blah, blah, blah. This is where you come to look.
Right, because
You
you're,
know,
you're
you
a
have
single
to.
mom, and you have to have somebody that you trust, and no better person to trust than your boys.
I want to take a quick second real quick, Don. I
Sure.
came in a few seconds late and I got my stream, my people who watch me on Facebook. Can you just real quick just give your name, tell them a little bit about yourself and your book and all that. Well, don't tell them about the book.
I'm
but
not going to tell them about my book.
I'm
I'll tell them where they can buy the book.
Tell them the name of your book. Also, tell
Tell
us why you named your book Cincinnati Doe.
Okay, so my name is Donna Haynes. I am a mother of two grown young men, I should say. My son was shot a little over 2 years ago, and I wrote a book about his experience, my experience. We went through a trauma actually together. And the book is actually, and I didn't say this, but I'll go ahead and say it now. The book is actually a memoir that recollects the trauma and the resilient recovery of a young man after being shot. But the catch is, it's told from his mother's perspective because, of course, he doesn't know.
Right.
So I kept a journal during that time. That was actually one of my other coping mechanisms. I kept a journal. I had the wherewithal to write things down every day the whole time he was in ICU. So so that's what it is. It's a memoir that kind of shares what I saw, what I felt, what I heard, everything while I was going through my own trauma.
Right.
So in essence, it's actually a story about hope and inspiration, because a lot of stories of gun violence, you don't hear the after effects. You don't
Right.
hear success stories or people who actually survive. A lot of times we just hear about the death and the despair and But this is actually a story about survival.
Right.
So it is an actual story of hope.
Okay, and
Yeah.
so my streamers, I know you just see her, but like she said, it's a success story, and I'm gonna pay it to my right and let you see.
Not
Okay,
yet. Not yet.
okay, so not yet. We're not gonna do it yet. Okay.
Not yet.
So
So, I read the book, and it is candid.
It is
very candid. Like I said, it made me laugh. It made me cry. There was a part in there that I want to talk about. Nurse Felicia, and I took an excerpt from your book where you said Felicia had inappropriately told you about the rehabilitation hospital. She said that you would not be admitted to NRH until the person who shot you was in police custody. This information had you totally confused, angry, disappointed, sad, and clearly upset. And in my mind, I was thinking, I know my girl Donna went off up in PG because she had no right to tell your son, first of all, to say that he's not going to be admitted. Honey, you don't know what's in her pockets, or you know what I'm saying? You don't know what kind of insurance she has.
Yeah.
And then
and one,
because
one
of the
has
trauma,
nothing to do with the other.
right?
It
And because of the trauma, the family had not completely told Cam everything that happened that night. You all were waiting until when it was time, when you felt he was strong enough, I'm assuming,
Right.
to handle that information.
Mm-hmm.
And for her to come out and tell him that, how did you handle that?
I got a question.
Sure,
Was
go
it a
ahead.
Karen that did this? What?
It was a Danica. See, y'all know what?
Damn.
I'm gonna keep it real. I'm gonna keep it real. Keep it real.
Right, because that's the book kept it very real. So that's
The book is very transparent.
Mm-hmm.
It's very real. One thing about me and both my sons, we have a very open relationship. They know me well. I know them well. And even in his darkest moment, when Nurse Felicia, quote unquote, gave him that information, he was cool. He waited till his mother came back in the room.
okay.
And say, "Ma, I gotta tell you something." He could barely talk
Right.
above a whisper. And I'm not going to tell too much about the book because that's a key part in the book. But he told me because he knew that I would take care
Right.
of it.
Right.
And I took care of it.
And
Yeah.
one other question I wanted to ask about, because I know Cam's dad was there. How was it co-parenting with him as far as Cam's care? Were you all on the same page? Or did you, at times have a little, some issues?
You gotta read the book.
I read the book. No, I read the book, so I know. But I'm just saying, like, overall. Like,
So
was it,
I will say that our son was the priority. And
Okay.
whatever differences we had before, during, and afterwards,
they were set aside.
they were set aside. Our son was the priority. That's one thing about he and I. We always made a good team.
That's great.
Maybe not the best married couple, but we always made a great team. And we got. There's nobody else that I would have rather have gone through that journey with. I will say
Amen.
that. Shout out to Greg Dasher. I'm gonna say that
That's
right
amazing.
here.
That's amazing. Let me ask you this: what is your stance on the Black Lives Matter movement?
Okay, so y'all see I'm wearing my Black Lives Matter
Yes,
dress
yes, I see.
today.
I
It has
see it.
pockets too. It's very, very
It's
comfortable.
really cute. Where'd you get that from?
Thank
We'll
you.
talk after the
I'll
show.
tell you afterwards. I'm a black mother. I'm all for the Black Lives Matter movement. It's necessary, very necessary. I know that the Black Lives Matter movement was put in place to fight against police brutality. And Carlton, I want you over there texting. I need you to listen to this.
Because I use that answer.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, okay. I'm
For
sorry.
our people,
Do
they
your
ask
thing.
us
Do your
questions
thing. Do your
for-
thing.
for our viewers.
Yes, and so I know that it's put in place for that reason.
Right.
But somehow I wish we could take the term Black Lives Matter and make it work for us too, in a different way.
Give me
Meaning-
example, yeah.
Meaning, I would like for Black lives to matter to Black people all the time.
Thank you, and that's
Okay.
exactly what I've been saying. I don't know if you saw my post on Facebook, but I've been saying that for the
Honey,
longest
I've been saying it for a
time.
long time.
And me and Tracy always talk about
Yeah.
that, how they say black lives, we say all lives matter. And one thing like how you say, how you wish it was more important amongst us, I always say that myself. I say me as a Black person, you know, we got people out here saying Black lives matter when a white officer does something or when a white person does something.
Right, but
So
what
to
about
me as a Black
us?
person, your life is more
That's
important
right.
to me
Right.
because
Yeah.
I am Black.
Exactly.
So it should matter more to me, and if it matters more to me, then I should preserve life more than I worry
That's
about
right.
what they doing. Now we have incidents, and I speak to like when they say the Black Lives Matter, it's always with law enforcement, but it's a known fact. You got more people killing their own people
Exactly.
all the time than the
That's
officers
right.
killing, and that's why I say. And that's why I try to get them to understand when I say, hey, I'm not against just saying Black Lives Matter, but I want it to matter all the way
All
around.
the way
Exactly.
around.
Right.
Right.
And
So
you know-
take-
you know
then
what
we
I-
have to
Black and
take
you
care
Black,
of
then I
us.
should
Like,
care
why-
about your life
why-
more.
You know what I'm saying? When you turn on the news, just was it yesterday? I saw that.
Any day.
You know,
Any
there
day.
are a lot of shootings in D.C. and I'm like, what is? I just want to know what is prompting these young men to go out here and just start shooting anybody? Like, what is the beef about? What are you mad about?
Half
Like,
of them
where?
don't know what it's about.
Yeah.
They really don't
It's
know
not
what it's
beef.
about. It's not. It's
It's
neighborhood,
ignorance.
and that's right. He said ignorance because something they heard. They have nothing to do with something they heard. Or just because I grew up
Or you
around
looked
there
at
and
me
he live
wrong,
over
or-
there,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta have a beef with. No, you don't.
It's crazy.
You have nothing to do with
But
it.
here's what I feel that other races and crooked cops or people that mistreat us, they're not going to change their behavior until they see a difference in how we treat one another.
Exactly.
So
And
I
that's
just
what
feel
I've
like
been
this
saying.
is
Once we value our
this
own
this
lives
Black
more.
Lives Matter movement is the perfect opportunity for us to start treating each other better.
Exactly.
You know, it's not-
especially
it's-
during this political year because
Exactly.
we clearly see that the person who's, I don't even want to
That's
say
a different
president,
show,
40,
girl. That's a different
45,
show. That's a
doesn't
different
even
show.
care about us.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
to start taking care of us. We need to take our communities back. That's
Right.
the issue.
Right.
We need to take our communities back. We need more men to go into communities. We need more seasoned mothers like you and I to help some of these young mothers with their kids. 'Cause like I said, they just send them. When I read about a 6 or a 5-year-old that was shot in the street at 10 years old, I'm thinking, well, why was your baby outside
At that
at
time.
that time of night?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why? Like, what was going on in your world that you didn't say? Okay, I grew up. Street lights came on. I came in the house.
And the mother didn't say, "Where you going? Where are
Right.
you? Who you gonna be with?" Just like we talked about a few minutes ago.
So I just,
Yeah.
it just ponders me. It vexes me. I just don't understand.
Yeah, the work starts with us for
It
sure.
does. It
For
does.
sure.
Hey, let me chime in right quick.
Go ahead, Tracy.
This is how you stop your kids from acting like idiots in the street. You get all the way in their business, and if your kid is a shooter, report that ass. It's that simple. And that's hard to do. So a lot of kids end up in the street. Parents that didn't want to turn their kids in.
You know
Listen, I'm a
what?
nosy mom. I had
So-
flip mattresses, okay?
So I think one of the questions you started asking was, how can we make a difference
Yeah,
in the
how can
gun
we make a
violence epidemic? And that's one of the things I say. If you see something, say
Say something.
something.
Exactly.
That street code means absolutely nothing when it's your son, when it's your brother, when it's your father. It means nothing. We got to start holding ourselves accountable. And it's a hard thing to do, like you said, because the person that shot my son 2.5 years ago still has not been apprehended.
Wow.
And I know somebody knows something.
Exactly.
Somebody knows something.
Somebody always.
Exactly.
Nobody gonna tell
Exactly.
until the shooter gets shot.
Right.
That's how it works.
Exactly.
Then they be like, oh, like you said, if he gets
Mhm.
shot,
This
if he
whole-
gets up, then it's like, oh, that's the guy that did such and such, so and so. Then it was like, oh, we found evidence. It's like you've known, or
Yeah.
somebody knew something. It's really sad. It's really really sad.
So I have a question for you, Carlton.
Yes, ma'am.
So, because my son's case is the investigation is still open. I can't talk about that per se.
Okay.
But one of the things I felt during the process is if he had been shot in a different neighborhood other than a PG County neighborhood, you know, this more urban, that the investigation would have been handled a little differently.
She's
And
saying, have you been in Rockville?
and our conversation today would be a little different. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. And it's sad to say, but I understand what you're saying, and I agree because I've seen it firsthand. I've seen it firsthand. You know, the same victims of crimes. And over there in Northeast and Southeast where I work, the same crime can happen in Northwest up Georgetown. And they get prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
Yes.
Yes.
You get them down on the South Side, well, we're gonna let you go with a warrant. They turn them right back loose in the community. So there is a difference, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't put it all on the officers. I don't put it all on the officers. It comes from the politicians. It comes from the higher up. You can never put it on the officer because as an officer, we're gonna go out and we're gonna make the arrest. As detectives, we're gonna investigate and we're gonna do what we do. But once somebody gets wind of it, they make a call downtown and they start talking to the deputy chief, the assistant chiefs, and all that, and then they make a call over to the U.S. Attorney's office. Somebody knows somebody.
That's right.
You know, somebody on Capitol Hill. Hey,
Right.
that was one of my, one of my employees over there. This happened to. I need y'all to take this out. I need you working on this, but I'm working on this.
Right.
And then, but I mean, you sitting there and you thinking to yourself, hey, this person over here just got shot.
Right.
They just got shot up there. What difference do it make?
Right.
They're both
Right.
victims.
It's all politics.
And like I say, it's and I don't put it at the officer on the street. So don't think the officer's not doing their job. I will never say a street officer or detective is not doing their job because they are. It's when it goes to the politics.
Right.
When the people start calling downtown. It's so many times I've been at my desk and somebody gets robbed. And I got 3 robberies, and they all got robbed by in the same fashion. But they say, hey, I need you to work on this one right here. Somebody downtown, and it just trickles down. It's not they want to see all the cases solved. But what happens is whoever knows somebody that knows somebody, and they start making phone calls, and that's how it works. And it's sad to say, when it comes to our people's lives, politics play more role in it than
I'm so
anything.
glad you said that because that's another thing, another area I feel like we can make a difference in the gun violence epidemic. We got to vote.
Yes, we have 10 more days, y'all.
And I'm
Yes.
actually not just talking about the presidential election.
in the
I'm
local
talking
election.
about
You about to say what
I'm talking about the local and
Local
state
Yes.
elections where we talking about the mayors and the sheriffs and the judges, even with the aldermen. Y'all remember the aldermen on Good Times? Y'all remember that? Y'all remember that? But those are the people who impact our communities directly.
Right.
Just like what you just said, Carlton. When somebody makes that phone call, are they gonna have your best interest at heart or not?
Speaking of which, did you make a phone call to the office of Angela Also Brooks, or also our former classmate, state's attorney Aisha Braithwaite?
This a real talk show?
Yeah, this is a real talk show.
This is a real talk show?
This is a real talk show.
We keep it 100.
We keep it 100.
We don't pull
Look,
no punches.
as the DC folks would say, 100.
Yeah, we don't pull no punches. You say what you want to say.
Right. You can cuss. You can say whatever you want.
Because that's what I'm going to do.
You see, there are libations in the studio.
Okay, so wait a minute, y'all. I'm gonna keep it real, but I
Keep it
still
real,
have to be
keep it real,
diplomatic
keep it
here
classy.
because my number one concern and priority is always about my son.
Amen.
And I don't want whatever I say to have a
Effect.
negative impact on him
On
because
him,
his
right.
investigation is still open.
Okay.
So to answer your question, yes, I reached out more than once
Okay.
and I did not hear anything.
Wow.
and I related the fact that, you know, hey, we fellow Largonians,
Right.
provided all, you know, information what I had, and that's been probably about a year, a little
Wow.
over a year ago.
Wow.
So no.
Well, I
So
know
it's
that-
not always about even who you know, it's that politics. And
Right.
and so I would say if my son's incident was high profile, if it was something, you know, maybe a different story. But there wasn't even a news article in the local newspaper.
Here's a question.
Wow. Yeah,
Was the
I
media
didn't see
notified?
it.
Say again?
Was the media notified that something had happened, an incident?
I was told not to do that at the time because the investigation was open and they were close. Y'all, I'm not supposed to be talking about this.
Hold on, but
No, it's
they were
okay.
close,
It's okay.
but
Talk
nothing
about,
has happened
you know,
in 2 years, right?
in 2 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that's sort of who I am. Always have this fire in my belly to do that. I'm very, very vocal, and I
Right.
was asked not to
But
because
as a mother, you
Right,
feel,
you're an advocate for your
I can
son.
understand not just the mother, but as a caring parent, you always want to speak up for your child.
Yeah.
So
And
the
you
so
want
so
nothing
the
but the
so the
best.
second part to that is I adhered to the request from law enforcement to do that, and I focused my attention on my son's rehabilitation. So I don't regret making that decision because, you know, it was probably the best thing I could have done, you know, to redirect my focus on that, and allow the police to do their job. So now we're here 2.5 years later, and I'm not staying quiet anymore. Hence,
Exactly.
Exactly.
You
You,
know.
need to be an advocate for your son
Yeah,
and an
so-
advocate for all the other sons that have been
Yeah.
murdered. Like I said, it you know, your story broke my heart. My oldest son, he lost two teammates. He used to run track. He lost two teammates to gun violence. And I went to both funerals, and I just sat there and I just shook my head. I was just like, positive young men, you know, that were gunned down. But like I said, in your case, you know, amen, praise God, your son survived.
That's right.
And speaking of your son, I want to know, you know, how is he coping?
Child,
How's he doing?
it's been an adjustment
Okay.
for all of us. Like I said, he had to learn how to do everything again. Carlton, I'm not sure if you were here when I explained this at the beginning, but he had to learn how to not just walk and talk again. He had to learn how to swallow and eat and chew and write, you know, all of those things. And just months and months of extensive rehabilitation, physical rehab, speech therapy, occupational therapy, the whole nine. And I want to use this as an opportunity. I'm gonna stop talking right now because we got a surprise in the studio.
Amen.
What we didn't announce is that my son is actually here.
Amen.
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 And so he can tell you all for himself how he's doing. So we're gonna pan.
To Cam, we're gonna welcome you, Cam.
Hey Cam.
How y'all doing? How y'all doing?
All right.
Cameron Dasher speaking. Cameron Dasher. And so my mom said, how am I doing? And so I'm actually doing very well. You know, it's been a long 2 years. I can say that for sure. But you know, I've learned to, you know, cope with, you know, I guess I can say my disabilities. You know, it's not really, to me, like nowadays, it's not really a big deal. You know, this whole getting shot. You know, that whole thing. It's not really a big deal to me because I moved on. You know, I've moved on my life. You know, I'm doing a lot better things for myself now. You know, I'm not doing a lot of the things I was doing, you know, 2 years ago. You know, I'm in a totally different, you know, mind space now. So, you know, I don't really like to dwell on the past, you know, especially because it's so negative, you know. So I wanna look forward, you know, look forward down the road, You know, just focus on, you know.
Oh, wow.
I'm about to start crying.
Yeah, no, I'm a mom. I'm a mom. Y'all know I'm like almost in tears when I walked up with him. I was like almost in tears. I was like, my God, because I got at her party, and to see him in front of me, he's walking, he's talking, intelligent, articulate. That ain't nothing but God, y'all. That ain't
Nothing but God.
God.
Nothing but
And
God.
Cam, you are a walking miracle. You are a blessing. You are an angel. You are an earth angel, and we are so happy that you are here. I pray. I was one of the many that prayed for you to be okay, and I look forward to seeing what you're going to do in the future, as far as, you know, maybe being an advocate for gun violence, or
A
you know,
council
maybe a council.
President.
Right? You never know. You know,
No
senator,
pressure.
you know, or maybe starting, you know, your own business, maybe for the youth, to try to help them. You know, whatever it is, I'm sure it's going to be successful, because you have a hell of a woman behind you, young
Yes,
man.
for
You,
sure,
you do.
For sure, yes.
You know, your mother is strong as a bull. Okay.
And on that note, I have actually created my own business, you know, for the
Okay.
youth. I can say it's something a lot different, you know, than, you know, selling weed, or, you know, buying shoes or whatever, buying clothes, you know, we call it drip, you know, whatever. But it's centered around foreign exchange, right? So
Okay.
I work with a company called IML, right? And what we do is we teach you how to trade foreign exchange, right? So we have a school style learning platform where it's like going to school, right? You watch a few videos, you know, and you leverage the collective. So what that means is you reach out to the 1,500 members of our organization or our business. And, okay, so let's say you have a question on something foreign exchange related, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of asking me, you know, one person, you can ask 1,500 members, right? You can ask, you know, whoever. And then on that tip, we trade foreign exchange and teach you how to trade foreign exchange, right? And then we also have a business side. So that side is called ranking up, right? So let's say, for example, I enroll my mother as well, and she tells her friend, you know, how she's making money off her phone. And, you know, her friend enrolls, right? So that's one under her. So it's a long chain, right? So let's say she gets 12 members in her business, right? So boom, she's making $150 a month by the company, right? So it's really cool. And like I said, it's
making honest paper.
Yes, it's different.
And it's teaching you
very
about
different.
something
Yes.
that we didn't learn
Yes.
as children. You couldn't
Yes.
tell me about foreign exchange. I'm like,
And
all
I
right,
will
what?
say this: he's 21 years old. His brother, who's 20, how old is David? 23. I
You know,
can't
we
remember.
lose count.
His brother bought him in, and they have reached so many young people.
Right.
So, in creative, like this positive wave among all these young people during the COVID-19 and the pandemic, where kids don't have anything to do.
Right.
You know, they could be out here getting in trouble. They're in the house learning how to trade foreign exchange and making money using their phone.
Wow.
So I just want to say I'm so proud of him. He was going
That's
to school
amazing.
for communications, and that was sort of, you know, diverted because of his incident. But he's found other ways to apply his skills and his know-how, and I'm just so proud of you,
That is
son.
amazing.
Yeah,
I'm just so
because-
proud of you.
I always tell my folks, like my prospects, we call them prospects, people who are interested in joining this, like, I always tell them, like, it's so many ways to make money out here, like, you know, and this is a way to make money, you know, legally.
That's
you know,
right.
you can actually
Exactly.
write this off on your taxes.
That's
you know,
right.
That's
it's
right.
it's not dangerous. You know, you're not going out here, you know, putting your life on the line. You know, you're making money off your phone, off your laptop. So, you know, it's really different. It's really cool. You know, unique.
If
That's
people
amazing.
want to sign up with you, how do they
How do they
Yeah.
contact you?
Because we need,
If
if
you-
you're any
if you
parents
wanna-
out here that want to have their son or daughter sign up with Cam, how do we sign up with
Yeah,
you?
for sure. I give you an email or whatever. My email address is Cameron, CAMERON period, Dasher, DASHER, number 6, at gmail.com.
All right. So y'all heard it straight from Cam.
That's
Yes.
my baby,
I'm
y'all.
gonna
That's
tell
my
you-
baby
I'm gonna tell you
right
what I've been doing.
there. That is my baby.
That's amazing.
I've been writing letters to people using my African name and telling them.
Oh,
I
God.
need
You know what? And on that
and it has
note,
not worked, so y'all better follow Cam.
wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Natural
Does he get the glasses for that one, Carlton?
Not just yet.
Not yet.
just
Not yet.
Not just yet.
And so, I don't think I said what the name of the book was or
I'm gonna
how
get
people
you
can
when you
get
hold it
it.
up.
Yeah, please tell us how your name of the book and how we can
The
get
name of the book is Cincinnati Doe: A Mother's 30-Day Journey in ICU. And you can go on our website, which is actually the name of the title, www.cincinnatidoe.com.
Okay,
Okay?
perfect. Like I said, I've read the book. It's amazing.
Thank you,
Your
Trina, for
memoir,
your support.
Like I said, I couldn't put it down. My husband was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm reading my girlfriend's book." I was like, and I explained to him about. I said, "Remember her son?" And he was like, "Yeah." I said, "This book is amazing because, like I said, it's very candid and it's very personal."
It is.
So I want to thank you and Cam for coming in today to share your story with us. I hope it reaches somebody out there.
I do
hope
too.
it reaches some people that need to hear this podcast. I also, hope that some parents out there give this information about Cam's business to their sons
That's
and
right.
daughters, so we can, increase his pockets,
Right.
and then increase your sons and daughters' pockets. I'm gonna have to
Right.
go
Get
home
them on
and-
my pockets. Get them
Right.
on my pockets.
Get you some money in your pocket, because I'm sure none of this was cheap.
I do want to say one thing. If we're closing out, I want to leave one thing with your
Please.
listeners,
Absolutely.
especially the young people. When we talk about gun violence and gun violence awareness, I just want to plead, just from a mother's perspective right now, just put the guns down, please. It is so not worth it resolving a problem in the heat of the moment, just making an emotional decision to
Right.
pick up a gun and shoot somebody. There's so many people who have lost their lives, so many young people who could have been something, good people who
Yes.
could be making a difference somewhere
Yes.
right now. Thank God my son survived, but his path was diverted as well. He was a student in communications. He was working. He's a good kid. He's not about that life,
Right.
And luckily he survived, by the grace of God, and has been able to find a different journey. But if we can just stop and think for a minute before we, take those type of actions, I think our country will be a better place. Our neighborhoods, the DMV area.
Right.
So that is a mother's plea right now,
And
guys. So
I'm
I
with
hope
you, Donna.
somebody hears it.
I'm with you. Put the guns down.
And I agree with you on that. And like I said before, I want to go back. Like I said, I love that you wearing the Black Lives Matter shirt. And I want to tell everybody, if Black Lives Matter, as a black person, they should matter more to you.
That's right.
And don't be so quick to take another life. You always, anybody you come across, you want to enhance their life.
That's right.
You don't want to take it or end it. It's unfortunate, what happened to you and your son. But I will say this, in the ultimate scheme of things, you put your faith in God,
Yes.
and everything happens for a reason. And I'm just glad to see that, hey, out of all this negative and all this pain and turmoil and anguish that you went through, something positive has come from it.
Yes.
I mean, your son, like you say, he was on one path, but now his path has been diverted, and he's prospering and he's doing good in that.
Yes.
You as a mother, we all worry about our kids now because you become such an advocate for it. And that's, every now and then we need to be thrust into a role. Some we didn't see ourselves doing.
Yes.
Some we didn't see ourselves doing.
That's
That's right.
2020.
But now we've
That's
been
right.
thrust into that role to say, hey, for a reason. Now I can speak up and now you've experienced it.
Yes.
So you come from a different place. Like I say, I've experienced on different sides, and all sides, really, seeing so much violence and death that when I talk about it, sometimes it kind of touched me,
That's right.
And I just think, wow, you know, so many gone that could have been so much.
That's right.
Right.
You know, so
That's right.
I feel for you, but I'm happy for you
Thank you very much.
because you're in a good place, and you're doing something you enjoy, and you still have your son, which is a blessing.
Yes, it is.
And
And I gotta
Donna,
ask
just
a
let
tough
me
question.
know if there's anything I can ever do to help you with your advocacy. I'm here for you. We got to bring you back on this show.
I
If I
appreciate
got to
that.
go for a
You're
walk
always
with you.
welcome. You're always
Thank
Right,
welcome.
you and Cam are always welcome. And
Thank you
I
very
just
much,
let you know your Lago
guys.
sister
Well,
got
hold
your
on.
back.
I got a tough question.
Uh-oh.
Hold on now.
Now
When
they
he,
can't-
hold on, hold on,
Now they-
hold
now
on.
they- now they
Hold
can't.
on.
Let's vote yes.
Before he say anything, when he say the tough question, we want to tell you are not obligated to answer these questions. I just want to tell you,
Here's
you're not
a tough
obligated.
question for both of y'all.
All right.
Nanny Cam is a high percentage at being healthy. Does he use his situation sometimes to get out of doing chores?
Oh, Lord.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna let him answer that.